So what are the characteristics of land? That's what we need to discuss right now. And there are two really distinct characteristics we want to talk about and you need to understand. There's the physical characteristics of land that we're getting ready to talk about. But then there's the economic characteristics of land. These are things that define land. Well, first of all, what are the physical characteristics? We know land is immovable. We've already discussed, in fact, we discussed all of this, to be honest with you. But land is immovable, it's indestructible, and remember it's heterogeneous, meaning there are no two parcels of land that are identical. All land is considered unique. There's always something different. If nothing else, location. There being two different locations. So all land is considered heterogeneous. And again, remember what land is. We're not talking about the dirt, right? Talking about land is the surface area, but it also includes the subsurface all the way down to the center of the earth and the airspace above the land. That's what we're talking about here. That's why it's immovable. You cannot move that. It's indestructible. And it's heterogeneous. You need to know the physical characteristics of land. But in addition to the physical, you need to know what the economic characteristics of land would be. What characteristics affect the value? Obviously the scarcity. Now we talked about this as well, but is land scarce? Well, no, it's not in its totality. We're just talking about land in general. There's plenty of land to go around. Okay, there's lots of land for sale even. But is it possible in some specific areas, maybe in a particular subdivision, for example, there are no more lots available. There are no lots you can buy. Then obviously those, or whatever land might be there, is scarce. So in areas where land is scarce, could that affect value? You betcha, right? If there's a high demand for land in one area and there's not much of it, it's scarce, then that's going to obviously increase the value. Improvements affect the economic characteristics. You add a house to the land or build a house on the land, that's going to increase its economic value, right? Or any other improvements you add to the land. But then location, that's always a huge deal right there. Location, in fact, typically here referred to, they have to say it 3 times. This location, location, location. And I'm telling you, it's a good reading for it. Location is critical to value. The value of a 1 acre lot in one area of town could be drastically different than what a 1 acre lot would be worth in another area of town, right? So, depending on the location, all those 3 things, scarcity, improvements, and location, those will have a huge bearing on the economic characteristics of the land. All right, so that's your characteristics. Make sure you know those, both the physical and the economic characteristics. But now let's talk about, why is a survey important? First of all, what is a survey? Survey, most people recognize or understand is, if you have a surveyor come out, they'll identify where your property lines are, or where your boundary lines are, right? And you need to have a survey. Now, first of all, is a survey required in order to buy a house? If you're buying a house, is a survey a mandatory something you have to do? Obviously, you have to pay, somebody got to pay for it. But is that a requirement to do? Certainly not in most states, if in any states, right? It's not mandatory, not a requirement. But I will tell you, highly recommended. You need it. Especially if you've got or you're looking at buying property, and a lot of times you'll see there's never been a survey. But even if there was a survey, but it's been many years since that survey was done. I'm telling you, you need a current survey. Highly recommend it. That I always have buyers that I work with. Obviously, that's a question I'll ask them. Do you want a survey? Usually the first question is, well, is that something we have to do? And well, no, you don't have to, but we highly recommend it. Well, then I might hold off. I'm going to save some money there. Okay, well, that's look, it's the buyer's call. But at the end of the day, I do have them sign a disclaimer or an acknowledgement, just acknowledging, look, I recommended you get a survey, and you chose not to, which is certainly your prerogative. But I do that because I'm telling you, something could go bad here, and I'm telling you, if the survey had been done, there's a good chance something bad would have been discovered. But because you never had it, you didn't know it, and now you got problems. Now you own the problem. And then they want to sue the agent and everybody else involved. It can get very ugly. There's no question about it. So at least I can say, look, I told you I think you need a survey, and you chose not to. But anyway, so why is the survey important? It says when closing on a property, buyers may assume they're purchasing exactly what they were shown. In other words, they go out to the property, and either the seller and or agents involved are indicating, where property lines are, where the boundaries are. And you're just relying on what they tell you. Now look, hopefully they're not intentionally misrepresenting or lying about where the boundaries are. But at the end of the day, is it possible they think they know where the boundary lines are and they just don't know? It's not where they thought it was. I'm telling you, that happens all the time. So you got to be really careful about that. But that second bullet says, however, the property being acquired is defined in the deed. And obviously the document, that's a document that serves as legal proof of ownership. The deed is the document that actually conveys, transfer ownership rights from one party to another party. Well, in the deed, you'll have a property description. But I'm telling you, most people are not able to look at that description and know exactly where the property lines are. Okay? Now, a surveyor, they're trained to be able to determine where the lines are based on that legal description. So, I think you need a survey. I really do. But then, we look at what some of the challenges with the deeds could be. Obviously, it's if you just have the legal description, which, by the way, in the next module, we're going to go over the different types of legal descriptions and how they're determined. But what I think you'll find is, honestly, it's not going to make sense to most people. When you see the legal description, again, in the next module we'll be going over, you'll see that. It's just not going to mean much to most people, okay? And that second bullet says it may not clearly represent property boundaries or potential issues. And I'm telling you, it won't do either one of those. You're not going to know exactly where the property lines or boundaries are, and you're certainly not going to know if there's any potential issues on the property if you didn't get the survey. So just relying on the legal description in the deed, I'm telling you, is usually not the best idea. Okay? All right. So what's the role of the surveyor? Obviously, they're experts. They're trained where they can actually take the legal description, use that description to determine exactly where your boundaries are, where your property lines are. And then you know exactly what you're buying, right? You're not guessing or assuming what you're buying. You know exactly what you're buying. Some of the other benefits of a survey, obviously it clearly defines the property lines, but probably just as important, if not more so, it identifies any potential problems that may exist. Look, I'm telling you, if you don't get the survey, there could be some serious problems with this property, and buyer, you won't know about it because you didn't get a survey, right? And you won't find out about it until you own the property, and then something blows up in your face, and now you're upset with everybody else that sold you the property. But some of these issues are like encroachments. Y'all going to be talking more about exactly what is an encroachment a little bit later on. But I'll tell you, right, y'all, an encroachment is an illegal, and y'all catch that word, it's illegal, infringement of one property owner onto the property of another. Y'all, that's the definition. So what does that mean? That means that somebody built something or constructed something on their property that actually is over the property line. Maybe I put a shed in my backyard thinking I knew where the property line was, and I built my shed where I thought it was on my property, but then I find out the property line's not where I thought it was. And now I got about 4 or 5 feet of this shed is now across the property line, encroaching onto my neighbor's property. Well, that's an encroachment. Well, is that a problem? Well, yeah. Y'all remember what I say the definition was? It's an illegal infringement of one property owner onto the property of another. So y'all, you could have some issues there, and the only way you're going to know for sure if there are any encroachments, again, is the survey. Y'all, surveyor will point that out. Y'all, so you'll have this piece of paper where they've drawn where your property lines are, and it'll actually show where the house is on the property. If you got any sheds or other buildings or whatnot, they will show, that will be on there. And they'll put them exactly where they are, so you'll know how close to the property lines they are, right? So you don't want to get involved in buying property where maybe a building on the property you're buying is encroaching on your neighbor's property. You certainly don't want that. But you want to make sure that you're not buying something where your neighbor's got a building or something that's encroaching onto your property. Y'all, these are just big time problems when they come up. I promise you. And then obviously if there's any disputes on where property lines are, of course we know neighbors never argue about where the property line is, do they? Well, sure they do. And y'all, anytime there's a dispute, then obviously you could get the surveyor come out and they will say exactly where the line is. Now there's no more dispute over where that line is, okay? So those are some very critical things you need to know about a survey, and also the different characteristics of land, physical characteristics and the economic characteristics, and make sure you understand what a survey is and why it's important. Those things are important in real estate.